Good day and welcome to Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. So, in today's update on the current hostilities between the Hamas organization, that for all intents and purposes runs the Gaza Strip, and the State of Israel, today we are hearing that the Israeli Defense Forces, the Israeli Air Force, attacked a fairly large building that uh, housed Al Jazeera, the Al Jazeera news organization. And that building was destroyed. We don't know if any Al Jazeera personnel were killed or injured in the attack. I would assume that the building was given a notice, as this normally occurs when Israel attacks large buildings or structures that possible civilians are in fact living in. Now, there's been much talk about this possible land incursion by the Israeli Defense Forces. There has been a limited call up of reservist personnel. There has been a movement of Israeli combat battalions. Approximately 3 brigades are now within striking distance of the Gaza Strip, possibly more now. And in fact, ground units are firing into the Gaza Strip at targets of opportunity. They've also pushed past the frontier fence, so to speak, as well. Now the question is Israel going to launch a large-scale operation, ground operation, into the Gaza Strip? Now I could be wrong on this, but at this point, I do not believe Israel is going to launch a massive ground invasion of the Gaza Strip. It would appear that some restrictions on Air Force strikes have been alleviated, and the Israeli Air Force has at its discretion can strike targets at will, and I think that is its intent. I believe that Hezbollah would like to see an Israeli ground incursion into the Gaza Strip, where it could possibly inflict casualties against the Israeli army. So I do not believe the Israelis are going to oblige the Hamas organization to that extent. I think the Israelis are going to continue a focused and heavy-handed aerial campaign, which appears at this point to be very effective. It has eliminated many of the leadership inside of the Hamas organization, some fairly significant and important leaders as well. It is striking targets, I believe, that Hamas did not believe that the Israelis would in fact strike. At the same time, we continue to see Hamas firing its rockets into Israel. I don't know how effective this is militarily. It would appear that it is firing. Many of these rockets are made inside of the Gaza Strip and are not that good in terms of manufacturing. As we are seeing, many of these rockets are in fact being fired from the Gaza Strip and then land inside of the Gaza Strip, thus injuring or possibly killing Palestinians who live in the Gaza Strip. Are many of these rockets hitting inside of Israel? Yes, they are. Israel is using its Iron Dome capacity at a fever pitch to try and intercept these rockets. At the same time, if there is a conflict between Hezbollah, I would have to think the amount of Iron Dome missiles that have been launched at these Hamas rockets have somewhat degraded the stocks of missiles that Israel has in store. These are fairly advanced rockets. They are not cheap to produce. I believe each of these Iron Dome missiles cost in excess of $40,000 each. So while not an incredibly expensive weapon system, nonetheless it is more expensive than the rockets that are being fired, obviously, into the state of Israel. But again, we continue to hear about the possibility of this ground incursion. At this point, I think we are going to continue to see an aerial operation as opposed to a ground operation. I think this will continue. I think the Air Force can basically hit any target it would like, other than a hospital that it knows is occupied by patients. But it is definitely not, when I say it is, that is the Israeli Defense Forces, the Israeli Air Force, is not afraid of causing collateral damage at this point. As long as these rockets are being fired into Israel, if the Israeli Air Force has a target that houses Hamas armed fighters, and at the same time there could be civilian casualties in this attack, I believe the Israelis are going through with the attack and accepting the collateral damage that is taking place. And again, I think some of the targets that have been hit inside of the Gaza Strip were targets that Hamas possibly believed were exempt from targeting. And I think these attacks will continue, possibly a limited ground incursion. It'll be interesting to see what occurs throughout the rest of Israel as we continue to see rioting and Arab versus Jew conflict going on in the state of Israel. And at the same time, there has been some rocket fire from Lebanon and areas of Syria into northern Israel. And if that were to explode, this could become a rather serious situation, possibly bringing in Iran directly. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.